Tuesday Tech News, everybody. Welcome back to your latest episode of Hot News. We got to talk about the fact that you probably shouldn't use Epic Game Store if you're on an AMD CPU. Also, the fact that everybody likes to make fun of Apple and then do exactly the same thing that they do. We'll get into that now by talking about Epic Games Launcher is apparently causing AMD Ryzen CPUs to run hotter and do stuff for no apparent reason at all, up to 20 degrees Celsius hotter in some instances. This was initially found out about on a Reddit post that somebody posted that ended up getting thousands of upvotes and hundreds of comments of people saying that they're having the exact same experience with Epic Game Store hurting their Ryzen processor. It's not quite clear what's causing the heat to jump in such a drastic measure, especially since the background utilization is typically between 1 and 7%, which usually doesn't result in such a heat increase on Ryzen chips. However, many people are finding that if they just disable Epic Game Store, they are actually getting much better temperatures on their Ryzen platform, even so much as to suggest this legendary launcher, which is essentially an Epic Game Store open source alternative so that you can still play your Epic Game Store games, but you don't have to actually use the launcher itself. There's a lot of testing and validation that was done by Hot Hardware, which we'll leave a link for in the video description, but they also found out that Epic Web Helper is sending some data to this URL right here, which is about 14 times what comparable game launchers are actually doing. Now, I wouldn't necessarily think 514 kilobytes of data would cause your CPU to go up in temperature 20 degrees Celsius, but it is very clear that something is happening with the Epic Games launcher that's causing problems on Ryzen processors and Ryzen processors specifically, according to reports. Have you been experiencing this? Let me know down below in the comments. I'm very keen to hear what the general user experience is. I haven't necessarily noticed, but I also don't constantly track my temperatures. I only really track usage, not the actual degrees Celsius that my processor's at. We'll obviously keep you updated as soon as we know more about what's going on with the Epic Games launcher and why this is happening, because it's quite odd that this is going down. It doesn't appear to be something like a crypto jacking scenario where the crypto miner will take over your computer and cause it to run when it's not supposed to, because you can't see the utilization happening unless it's some like super secret Chinese government thing, which a lot of people are potentially speculating it is because Epic Games has ties to Tencent, and that creates a whole nother worm of cans. Now let's talk about a worm of cans that you want to get into with your Ryzen processor, because you want to get out of Epic Games, but you want to get into the clock tuner for Ryzen 2.0, which just got announced with Ryzen 5000 support as well as hybrid OC mode, and it's going to be available at the end of January. This is brought to you by Osmo, who brought out the original clock tuner for Ryzen, and it's getting a brand new AI as well. You can check out all of the details here. Hybrid OC will make it so that you don't have to choose between the standard boost and manual overclocking. You do a combination of those two profiles to make it so that you're getting the best performance at any given time, and you can just check out the new UI down here. Can't wait to download and use this with my Ryzen 5000 CPU if I ever get one. Thanks AMD for producing plenty. And Among Us produced plenty of joy for people because a study just came out showing that it had over 500 million active players in November. Now, this is not concurrent with people playing at the exact same time, but over the given month, 500 million people played Among Us. Part of this obviously due to the rise in popularity on streaming platforms such as Twitch, but also part of it is due to the fact that it's actually remarkably affordable. It's free on mobile, and then it's only $5 on PC. That's a very accessible game for people to get in on, and it provides a lot of necessary community in these trying times. So I can absolutely see that it had this appeal across the world. 500 million people playing Among Us is just ridiculous. What's also ridiculous is the fact that companies continue to act like they're better than Apple, but then realize, no, Apple's making some really good decisions financially, and maybe we should follow that too, because we actually also care about money, and Apple's one of the most rich companies in the world, so it just would make sense to kind of emulate them. But hardy har, if we're not going to get our marketing jabs in and pretend like we're better than the problem, take that situation and apply it to basically everywhere in life at this point. Anyway, Xiaomi, who mocked Apple removing the charger, has now confirmed that they are going to remove the charger from their Mi 11 phone. It's just not going to be in there for environmentally friendly reasons, which you can say that's happening. Apple actually has a better track record on the environmental friendliness when it comes to the supply chain of their phones. In fact, even making it so that their tier 2 providers are going to be carbon neutral on their side and backing up their statements. However, it's very clear that this is also a financial incentive. Let's not just kid ourselves that this has everything to do with the environment. No, you make more money because you're not including the charger, and you get to charge the exact same price for the phone. And you saw Apple do it. If the biggest company in the world can get away with it, so can I. And that's exactly what's happening. It's nonsense. What also was nonsense was the fact that if you had a PS5 and you were trying to play a game that you also owned on PS4, but you wanted to play the PS5 upgraded version, you could somehow just play the PS4 version and not know. And now with the latest patch from Sony, thankfully now it lets you know when you're selecting the wrong game, and it'll say, hey, do you want to switch to the PS5 version? Yes. I don't understand why I wouldn't. I'm sure there's some reason, which is a good reason they have a confirmation screen here. And it's good now that the DualSense controller will work on Linux. Sony releasing an official Linux driver for the DualSense in case you want to use that on your superior operating system. Speaking of superior, in case you want the superior headphone experience with Caviar's AirPods Max, they're only going to set you back $108,000 for these pure gold ones. Man, I hated these things in the first place. This just takes it to a whole another level. Oh boy. Speaking of talking about something that's going to cost $108,000 and has Apple's name on it, turns out that certain analysts are saying that we're too bullish on the time frame for the Apple car. Yes, they might start entering into production on 2024, but just stop. You're going to see in 2028. Okay, it's going to take a while for them to get all of the manufacturing. I think that makes tons of sense. Like, Apple could be absolutely developing the technology, but as Elon Musk has said over and over and over again, when it comes to car manufacturing, the thing that's hardest about it is not making the car, it's making the things that make the car. And Apple doesn't have a car making factory set up. They're going to have to do that first, and I can see why it would take a little bit longer. I'm okay with this. Doing it properly, making sure you have the backside infrastructure to do it is a great idea. Wait until 2028 to not buy the Apple car. It's fine for me. But you don't have to wait till 2028 to find out more about an Apple Watch OS prototype, because it came out a while ago, obviously. But this prototype Apple Watch with security case is running a pre-Watch OS 1.0 build. And actually it looks remarkably similar to what it ended up being in the final product, but it's just neat to see how things were and then how they inevitably came out to be. And if you want to get started inevitably with the corporate overlords that are eventually going to take over everything, Amazon obviously is part one, but part two could be working at Apple, and Apple starting the Launch at Apple college mentorship program in 2021, which will match students one-on-one with Apple mentors and provide resources and opportunities for personal and professional growth and making sure that you're indoctrinated into the cult of Apple. Speaking of another cult, Tesla is now introducing Apple Music and Amazon Music according to an app update that has kind of been rumored out there, which would mean that it doesn't just have TuneIn Radio and Spotify. Elon Musk also saying that Tidal could potentially get added to this, but as we talked about in yesterday's episode of Hot News, Square might be buying Tidal, and I don't think that'll change anything, but it's a possibility. Now let's switch from cars to the other best mode of transportation, planes. And the USA's EPA just announced the first ever airplane emission rules that's coming out from the Environmental Protection Agency, which is going to start rolling out standards for regulating airplane juice usage. The FAA is expecting to publish the proposed rule next year to incorporate the EPA standards, and so we could see what new planes come out of it. Hopefully they don't crash like the 737 MAX. And Canon has been crashing in my heart as of late because they just decided to skip the mirrorless revolution for quite some time, and then everything that they made was just kind of subpar to everything Sony was making. Obviously, Canon fanboys are going to reject that and say, no, they had this feature on the Z5. No, that's Nikon. Never mind. What's the RP, R5, whatever it's called. Anyways, Canon's patenting an Osmo style camera, which is going to have an interchangeable lens system. I actually had the original Osmo, which kind of sucked, to be quite honest. But in case you want a gimbal with something that you could just slap a lens onto, Canon might be coming out with something like that in the near future, at some point, not today. And not today is when we're going to get destroyed by an artificial sun, because South Korea turned theirs off after they set a record by having it run at 180 million degrees for 20 seconds. This is part of the KSTAR program, which basically made a fake sun, essentially. From what I gather, it's actually a torus that's on the inside and not like a giant ball. But anyways, 180 million degrees for 20 seconds, a lot of plasma going on, making a fake sun. Jeez. Okay, it's apparently held in with magnets so it doesn't touch the metal and instantly incinerate it and burn it, and that it's super complicated, but fake sun's coming to you. Just don't blow up the world, KSTAR, please. Okay, and with that being said, I'm going to blow up this episode of Hot News by ending it, which, yeah, this is similar idea. Burning out from nuclear fusion, burning out from the heat of this hot news. It's all the same. So, I'll catch you in tomorrow's episode. Thanks for tuning into the Tech News. I'm Brett. You've been news. Get subscribed to all of that kind of stuff. You know, it's YouTube, so just participate. Goodbye.